If you're running a podcast as a business owner, I promise you're not just trying to create content. You're trying to build relationships, get referrals, and turn guests into people who will literally advocate for your show. But the reality is, most podcast hosts treat their guests like a transaction. I used to be one of them, but they book them, they record them, publish the episode, and they move on, and they wonder why their guests don't share the episode. They wonder why no one's referring other people on their show, and they wonder why the relationship ends the second you stop recording. So the difference between a forgettable podcast experience and one that gets you endless referrals, it's not the interview itself. It's everything that happens before and after. And today I'm going to walk you through exactly what you should be doing pre-interview and post-interview to create an experience that makes your guests want to promote your show, refer other people to you, and stay connected a long time after the episode goes live. So let's get into it. So today I'm going to walk you through exactly what you should be doing pre-interview and post-interview to create an experience that makes your guests want to promote your show, refer other guests to your show, and stay connected long after the episode goes live. So let's get into it, and I want to start with pre-interview. The whole goal here is to minimize their mental load, okay? So let's just assume you've booked the guest. They've committed to coming in studio. Okay, I'm not doing virtual today. And the first thing you need to understand is this. Their time is valuable and they're donating it to you. And that's why they're on your show in the first place. So your job from this point forward is to involve them in as little as possible until they walk through the studio. So get a point of contact. That's going to be the first thing you want to do. If they have an assistant or an admin or a point of contact you can coordinate with, that's huge. Because if they're a busy person, like, you're going to be saving them from time. You can email that POC, point of contact. You could CC them on everything, handle the logistics without doing anything that involves your guest, which is definitely something I would want. So this immediately shows that you value their time and you're not going to be someone who sends them like 47 follow-up emails. So let's talk about doing your own research. So the first thing you want to do, in case they have it, is get branding assets from them. That's going to be headshots, bio, anything they might want to be featured in the episode. But don't wait for them to send that to you. I love and think it's huge to go to Instagram, to go to Facebook, to go to LinkedIn, go to their website, like go into ChatGPT, go into Claude and see what comes up. A lot of time their materials, in my experience, their materials are outdated. It's an old picture. You're actually doing them a favor by kind of getting fresh stuff. But here's the real reason you're actually doing this. You're looking for connection points. And I've done this a million times. Did they just run a half marathon? Did they compete in a bodybuilding show? Did they have a child recently? Did they get married recently? Did they speak at a conference for the first time ever? All of this is going to give you material that makes them feel seen when they show up. So now that you have all that, now you got to send like a freaking amazing invite. So this invite that we do, we actually make it an email as well. This is the point where you're again demonstrating that you're going to eliminate every single piece of guesswork for them and any time that you need them for. So our calendar invite is pretty extensive, and we also put it in an email. But let's go ahead and get into some of those items real quick. So the studio address with building codes if you need it. Make it ridiculously easy. Parking instructions. For example, here, parking is ridiculous. So I know the exact street where there's a parking garage that's more affordable, easier, and where they're not going to get a ticket. No one wants to have parking anxiety when they're freaking going to a studio to record a podcast. Trust me. If there's multiple entries into this studio, give them a backup plan in case if they think around front's the back, or if they think around back is the front, you want to eliminate that confusion. Provide your phone number in there so they could text you if they get lost or let you know they're going to be late, which happens all the time. Another thing which I absolutely believe is like going above and beyond is like this studio, for example, is right by a coffee shop. I mean, it's like right there. So I always ask them what their coffee order is. I don't want them to think about grabbing a coffee on the way, especially if it's a morning podcast. I'm just like, tell me your order and I'll get it to you. Or if they like sparkling water or something along those lines. These are all things that are showing that you care on a much deeper level than just having this transactional podcast. And even better, if you want to take it like another notch, is meet them at the coffee shop. Like you just be like, hey, meet me there. And you'd be like, here you go. Another thing I like to do is what to wear. I like to tell them what to avoid wearing. Don't wear anything that has too many patterns or too much things that are going to draw attention away from you. I always like to tell them, don't overhydrate. Have the coffee, but don't eat a burrito before we start, and don't overhydrate to the point where you might be restless in your seat and literally not thinking about, our conversation. So that's a big one as well. And then you're going to just give them an idea of how long this is going to take, what the vibe is, and that there's absolutely no pressure in this, that they're just here. So the emails, just for redundancy, again, we're just trying to eliminate any possible anxiety they might have before showing up. When they're wearing the right thing, when they have their coffee, when they know where to park, they already feel like you respect your time and you've literally thought this through. Like, this was not just kind of like figure it out. So that's the vibe you want. That's the vibe you want before they ever sit down to record. Now, let's transition to the day of and the studio experience. Now, if you are going to be at someone else's studio, this is important to just like have a relationship with them. Or if you happen to have your own one, then cool. But they're walking into the studio and like, obviously that's where the magic happens in the conversation. But again, before the interview even happens, if you did your homework already, you have everything, you might know their favorite sports team and you could be playing highlights in the background. If you know the music they love, we have a Bose speaker in here and we usually have their music playing. We have a Vesta board that I could show you guys where it'll flip to welcome to the studio. We can't wait to create. Like, all these things are potentially ways you can kind of customize their arrival to something that's just really favorable. And again, these are things when you place them against someone else's studio or someone else's podcast that they've been on will separate you. And that's the whole point. Then when you do move to sitting down, here's a big one. Start recording before the podcast actually starts. Okay, I'm just telling you. If you do this whole, all right, here we go in 3, 2, and we're recording, like, they change. John's right here. Like, he knows it, dude. Like, if you formalize this, they will just turn from to like just different. And then like however you don't want them to come across is exactly how they're going to come across. So if you are recording before you are actually, the podcast would inevitably start, you have this time to just laugh, to joke, to do whatever. They're already loose. They're already being themselves. And you've literally like eliminated any kind of anxiety of like a hard start, because that kind of stuff makes people nervous. So here's the other side. After you wrap, don't stop recording either, because another thing I would bet so much money on this. Like, there's such like this sigh of relief after they're done. That's where they just like, you just start talking about random stuff, or just you're more connected than you were 40 minutes ago or an hour ago. And that's really where some of the best conversations happen, and you have some good content there. You might also have some bloopers, but no matter what, like, you definitely have a better connection then. So this next part is what I like to just call a 2-person system. If you could swing it and you could hire a freelancer, get 1 or 2 people in the studio with you, okay? You could have someone who's switching cameras, but that they probably have that person already, but someone who could take B-roll, meaning just like footage, behind the scenes type footage, and someone who could potentially take pictures, all while you're recording, all while you guys met, all afterwards. And, I'm not literally trying to plug the way we do it, but, John will be taking pictures during the podcast and I'll be switching, and then we'll switch. No, like, welcome to the departmency of redundancy department, but like, so we'll switch, and then I'll start taking B-roll with a camera. So not pictures, but B-roll, because I want to make a reel out of it. And then we'll switch again, and I'll be on the switcher going back and forth. This is if we're coordinating a podcast. And by the end of the podcast, that last 20 or whatever minutes, John has been like editing photos. And then when people are done, if we could do this, we'll airdrop it right then and there. And they'll be like, what? Like, and it looks dope. John's so good with the camera and editing. So they just like are already leaving with an over the top experience. So if you can afford a freelancer to come with you and get B-roll and all that extra content, they're going to be pretty freaking amazed by that. And you just want to capture the moment, especially if it turns out to be a really good show. These are all the things that are demonstrating you are operating on a different level, and you want people who know you're a podcaster to think you operate at a different level because podcasting is so freaking hard. So let's talk about post-interview and what you should do afterwards. Okay, so they've left, and most hosts thinks the job is done right then, and it's not. The first thing you want to do is a thank you email. Send them a thank you email the same day. Keep it short. Thank them for their time. Let them know when the episode is going to be published if you know, and then let them know that you'll follow up with a date if you don't. But also, you could just like drop in a couple lines like that part about, you pooping your pants was so funny. Like, I'll never forget that. Anything that shows that you were actually actively listening and you remember something from a couple hours ago is a pretty good idea. So then you're going to let them know that you can provide assets. Everyone wants assets. And by assets, I mean the pictures. I mean the B-roll. I mean the actual raw footage of the stuff. And the reason is everyone wants content. Everyone wants different content. So if I record my YouTube videos right here every time, and I happen to go on a podcast and John's able to come with me or whatever, and I'm in a new environment doing new things with new people, like people want that content for behind the scenes of their life or anything like that. Like any additional content is good. So you can let them know that you will be able to link that content to them a few days before the stuff publishes. Don't share it with them right off the bat. And the reason is that you don't want them using any of that stuff before the podcast is actually published. Maybe the pictures, that's different. But the actual like content, like the meat of the podcast, you don't want them having that in advance. Just don't forget, you could mention to them that you'll tag them or collaborate, but do not expect anything from them. You know why? Because they've already donated their time. Like I kind of mentioned that already. So like you are just focused on giving a great experience, not like you better promote this stuff. I literally know podcasters who've have you sign something that says you will commit to promoting it. I'm like, are you out of your mind? Like I remember like being like, never mind, I don't want to be on. And I probably would have without being asked. That's the crazy part. So let's talk about the day of the email when the episode publishes. That day, once you have all the links, you need to send them another email with a link to Spotify, a link to YouTube, and a link to Apple, and be like, here you go if you want simplicity to share it with people, or if you want to watch or listen to yourself on the way to work or any of those things. So here is the important part, and I hope you've kind of got the gist. You want them to know that your goal is to serve them, that this wasn't just a podcast. This wasn't just a conversation. This is the start of, a relationship potentially, and you want to know how you can be of value to them now that you've kind of like connected. You don't want to be of value to them just because they were of value to you. Again, especially if you're a business owner, you want to stay genuinely connected. Okay, so we've already talked about sharing the assets. We've talked about the follow-up email. We talked about the pre-follow-up email, and that's it. Now, one thing back on sharing the clips and stuff like that, like I also know podcasters who won't do that because they said it's their IP. And I'm just like, who cares? Like, who cares, man? Like, let them do whatever they want. They're in it. So, and they're going to have their team cut some stuff up if they want anyway. So then the last thing I want to talk about is the referral ask. And this actually happens in the studio. Okay. I forgot to do this. Pro move at the end of the episode. What you're going to do is let's just assume you are John, the phenomenal studio operator here at Unfilter, and you're him, and he's a guest on the podcast talking about powerlifting and how to powerlift cameras and I don't know what, like crazy nonsense. What I'm going to say is, John, this was such a good interview, man. I hope you had a good time. I really need more people of your caliber on this show because like ones like this, they just crush, and I want people to know them, and I want people to know you. So do you have like 3 people you think might be a really good fit for the show? Again, like they need to be at your level, not anyone below, and you're going to be flattering them. And I would only do this if you actually enjoyed the episode. If you didn't, like freaking don't worry about it. But you probably have a capacity to pick good guests. And if you do, then this is what you want to do. You just want to ask them, like, and sometimes they'll say, I don't know, let me think about it. I'll get back to you. That's fine. That just leads into when you thank them in that follow-on email, you could be like, and by the way, let me know when, or I'll email you again in a week if I haven't heard back from you with any potential guests that you could recommend to the show. So yeah, flatter them, get more guests. Flatter them, get more guests. And if you're in business, this means potential referrals. All these people are expanding your network, which is exactly what you want. I would venture to say that that is more of a referral engine than them sharing your episode. So again, creating a great experience is going to be the best way to have them send people your way. So look, here's the reality. Most podcasts treat their guests like content machines. They extract value and they move on and they feel good about themselves because they got another podcast, and they're probably in a position where they're behind on podcasts and they just needed to get something in really quick, and that's always crappy. You have to look at every guest as a potential client, a potential referral, and a potential relationship. Okay, all that interview pre-work I was talking about, that shows that you're serious about your craft and that you respect their time. The studio experience, even if it's not your own studio, that's where they're going to feel valued and comfortable enough to give you their best because you're showing them, you're trying to give them your best. And the post-interview follow-up that we talked about, that's what kind of keeps the relationship alive after you've connected, and it turns one episode into 3 referrals. So none of this stuff is hard, and I really hope we kept it simple. It just requires some intentionality, and most people don't do it because they're focused on the interview itself. And I do believe you should be focused on the interview, but that's another video we'll do some other time. But if you're willing to put in the work before and after, that alone is probably going to help you stand out, and your guests are going to promote your show without you having to ask them or beg them or make them sign a freaking contract to do it. That, and obviously they're going to refer people to you. And hopefully you stay connected well after the episode goes live. And that's it. So that is how you build a podcast that actually grows your business. So if you found this helpful, follow me on Instagram at podcastrich, or and you could also see at unfiltered.studio, UNFLTR. And if you're someone who's running a podcast and needs to hear this, or you know someone who's running a podcast and needs to hear this, please share it with them. That'd be awesome. And yeah, I really thank you. I thank you for watching, and hopefully this was of value. Later.